I already posted a YouTube video about the full game with the new ChoGath build. I thought I would go a step further and make a quick guide on how it works and, strengths, weaknesses, and just things to consider when you go for this build. We start off with Shirelia's, well, technically Dark Seal. That should be your first item when you go back, and an Amplifying Tome. But your first full completed item will be Shirelia's. Overall, the entire point of this build is to have as much movement speed as possible and to be seemingly everywhere across the map and be, involved in every fight, invade, objective, and just be present on the map as much as possible. So, movement speed is going to be key. I would go for a Deadman's Blade second if the enemy has a lot of AD damage, maybe a Force of Nature if they have predominantly AP damage. You could also go Abyssal Mask, but that kind of goes away from the whole meme build of going for just movement speed. So the next item you want to go is Lich Bane. It's going to be another huge power spike. You have so much burst with this item. The movement speed, it really fits well into this entire build. After that, we want to round it out with Cosmic Drive. Yes, even more movement speed. But it also makes you a little bit more tanky. At this point, when you're already at 3-4 items, hopefully you have your passive ultimate stacks, the 6 out of 6, plus maybe already a couple of the bigger objectives, and you are stacking HP already. Now, the very last item is a little bit debatable. You can go pretty much whatever you need in the end. You could go for a death cap if you're feeling really funny and you're super fed and you just want to go for, one-shots and fun fights. I would recommend going situational, so an hourglass if you have a high shutdown or if you're really the only front line. But the core items for sure will be Shirelia's, Deadman's Blade, and Lich Bane. Then next up for runes, you want to go Hail of Blades, Cheap Shot, Grisly Mementos, and Ultimate Hunter. The second page is going to be Sorcery, and here you want to go Axiom Arcanist and Celerity. Celerity is going to amplify all your other movement speed bonuses from the items, and Axiom Arcanist and Ultimate Hunter will just ensure that you have your ultimate up as much as possible, and you have very good burst damage with your R. Now in the jungle, it's even more crucial that you have as much cooldown on your ultimate as possible, because you want to use this to secure objectives, and you have to decide between using your R for a fight, for a gank, for stacking, or for securing an objective. So you really need to know when to have your ultimate up and how often and when to use it. That is probably the most difficult part of decision making in this build and in this pick. Now, skill order is pretty simple. You want to start with E and you want to also max E. You want to make sure you get those 3-4 auto attacks with your E off with Hail Blades, and then it's a lot of burst damage. It slows the enemy. It enables you to also connect your Q much easier because of the slow. After the Q, you can silence, and then hopefully you have enough damage to immediately R, and voila, one-shot the enemy. Now, between Q and W max, I don't really know the difference. I'm not a ChoGath player. I max my Q. I think that's the more efficient spell, the knock-up and the damage. The W, I think AoE Silence is also a really broken spell, but I think scaling-wise, Q max second is going to be the play. And then anytime, of course, if you can level up your ult, do it. So level 6, 11, and 16. So matchups that are a little bit difficult, I would say anything that can kite you or has a lot of dashes to get away. Really hard to pin down something like a Kaisa or, an Ahri. Anything that has a lot of mobility or disengage. For example, into an enemy Janna or Nami or a Gragas. They have fantastic disengage tools, and it's really hard to lock them down. Because yes, you have a lot of movement speed, but you still don't have a gap closer. So be aware of that. You could also try to build a, proto belt into this build to get a little dash to get away from, for example, Janna Tornado, and then use Shirelia's and start running at her slower with E and Hail of Blades. Connect your W and Q, and then, But I think that is one of the biggest drawbacks of this build. You are very easily kiteable, and you're not really a frontline, even though you're kind of tanky. So you still have to play a little bit like an assassin and go for flanks, go for picks, maybe front to back, because you do have a lot of damage and also max AP damage with your E. And you can lock down or do a surprising amount of damage with your true damage from your ultimate on the front line from the enemies. So if, for example, an enemy Sejuani runs into you or into your team, don't try to ignore her and run to the backline, to their backline to fight the enemy AD carry or AP carry. You will most likely not survive that. It's better to just dish out your entire damage, your rotation onto the tank, and maybe even peel for your AD carry. But where this pick really excels is long drawn out fights, flanks, picks, and overall ganking. Map presence is where this build shines. So make sure you are part of as many fights and objectives and, invades as possible. Shadow the enemy jungle, rotate for anything that is happening on the map. This is where the build shines. You want to be zooming across the map with your movement speed. In bigger team fights, Make sure you still position well, act like you're an AP mage assassin because you look tanky, and yes, you do have a lot of HP, but you can be locked down quite easily. 1v1s are amazing, but be careful. You only have burst damage. So when your Hail Blades and your E runs out, it's actually surprising how weak you are. You have insane burst damage in your one rotation, and then you need to kind of disengage until your cooldowns are back up. If you have your cooldowns, you're very strong. If you don't, you're very weak. So if you're playing against a Viego or Lee Sin or any bruiser with like Conqueror or that wants a drawn out fight, a long fight in a 1v1, you will lose for sure. So make sure you know your limits and you look for those targets that you can comfortably one-shot in one single rotation. I tried 6 ranked games with a buddy of mine and it started out amazing. We started with an absolute banger of a game. I'm not going to go into too much detail here because I have the full game on YouTube already posted. Yeah, go check that out. It was a banger game, super fun moments. Hope you enjoy. The next game we played was also immediately a carry performance. This build felt like a cheat code to get free LP, but sadly it turns out you can still not 1v9. So it's not a Gwen, and you still do need your team. Maybe I also didn't play it well. This was the first try playing this build, right? So there's a lot of tweaks, a lot of limit testing that I still need to do and to learn what I can actually do in a team fight and whatnot. But if your team really is struggling on the map, you will also not be able to fully carry. So sadly, the next 4 games, we lost all 4 in a row. The build never felt weak though. I always felt like I contributed enough or a lot to the team. I still did a lot of damage. You know, I took a lot of damage as a frontliner, applied a lot of CC, secured objectives. But sadly, I don't know if it was the champion, the build, or just unlucky teammates or my own playstyle or something. I have no idea what was going on. I will test this build even more in the future, guys. I will try to tweak it a little bit, maybe see what we did wrong in those 4 games, see if we can get back on track as we did with the first 2 games where we absolutely popped off and destroyed everything, had big carry performances. I'll keep you guys updated. After all of this, I can still recommend it. It was really, really fun to play. It felt strong in every single game. Even in the losses, I felt like I contributed something to the team and had some value. Go see for yourself, try it out. That's it from me. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll leave a fun highlight compilation here for you now. Take care, guys. Oh, yes. Let's go.